Hello and welcome to Year 4 English. I'm going to share my screen with you so I can show you what we're going to be doing today and so that I can introduce myself. So here we go. Hello, got the PowerPoint up. You can see there's a little character there. He's going to be joining us for our lessons. And this is our Year 4 English unit of work. This is lesson 1 of a 2-week unit of work that we're going to be doing together over the next couple of weeks. Here is Splash, and Splash is a 3-toed sloth, and he's going to be joining us. He's going to be popping up all over the place in lessons to give us a hand, and he's introducing me. My name is Mrs. Aston, and I usually work at Southampton Hospital School, which is part of the Hamwick Trust, and we are going to be doing some work together this week. Normally, I work with children who are having to stay at home because they're not very well. So I usually work with children at home who have maybe been in hospital and have just come out and are not quite well enough to go to school, or children who have, for any particular reason, not been able to go to school. So it might be that they've broken their leg and they can't move around at school, or they've got something else wrong with them that means they can't go to school. We also teach children actually in the hospital, and we teach children from all over the south of England who come into hospital and need some help with their schoolwork while they're in hospital. And we've got some classrooms, and we also teach some children at their bedside. So that's what I usually do. And I know usually you go to school as normal, but this and the next couple of weeks we're going to be doing some learning together at home. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's have a look and see what we're actually going to be doing. So our unit is all about community. So that's a group of people that share a common goal. And in our case, we're going to be looking at the Amazon rainforest. So our community is going to be animals and plants and humans, and they're all living and depending on the Amazon rainforest. And the Amazon rainforest is in Brazil. And if you're doing my geography lessons, we'll find out a bit more about where the Amazon rainforest is. It might be quite useful if you do the first geography lesson before you do this unit of English, because it'll be really helpful for you to understand a bit more about the Amazon rainforest. But don't worry if you don't have chance. So in this unit of work, in this English unit of work, we are going to be looking at the structure, vocabulary and grammar of text so that we can use them to help us in our own writing. And in our writing, we're going to be trying to use expanded noun phrases, and we're going to be trying to use correct punctuation of direct speech. And we're also going to be looking at some reading objectives as well as we go along. We're going to be summarising, and we're going to be looking at some of the language that authors use in their texts. So we've got lots to cover in the next 2 weeks. We're going to be doing a variety of texts. We're not just going to do one text. We're going to do a picture book. We are going to do some poetry, we are going to look at some non-fiction books, and we're going to look at some extracts from some longer books. So a big variety of different texts. So if you don't like one particular text, you can plough through that bit of work and then move on to the next text, and hopefully it'll be something that you like a bit more. So we've got all different texts over the next 2 weeks. So let's have a look and see what we're going to be doing today. So today, we're going to be looking at what a noun is, and hopefully you might already know what a noun is. And we're going to be going over that to make sure you're really clear about that. And you probably covered that in Year 2 and Year 3. And we're going to be making some predictions using evidence from the text. And we're going to be doing some summarising of the text. So summarising means we're going to be trying to draw out the key points of a text. And summarise them means writing it in a really short form so that it's nice and concise. So that's our plan for today. Each session, we're going to start with a game. And that's what we're going to start with today. But before we start our game, we just want to make sure that you've got everything you need. So at this point, you can pause and make sure that you've got everything. So you're going to need a pen or a pencil, you're going to need some paper, and then your English book or some lined paper if you haven't got your English book at home with you. Okay, it might be your literacy book if you call it your literacy book at your school. So ready for a game. I'm going to switch our brains on, make sure you've got everything. If you haven't paused, if you have, let's get going. So our first game today is all to do with nouns. So here's a picture. I want you to have a really good look at that picture. It's a picture of a scene from the Amazon rainforest. And I'm going to give you 30 seconds. That's a really short amount of time. And I want you as quickly as you can to write down a list of nouns, okay, that you can see in that picture. So nouns are the names of people and places and things and emotions. And a really good clue to whether something is a noun or not is whether you can put the word the or a before it. So you can see there we've got a tree and we've got a man. So they're the kind of words that we want to be writing down. So you don't need to write the word a or the, but if you're not sure whether a word is a noun or not, if you try putting a or the in front of it, that should give you a good idea. So we're going to write a big long list. I'm going to do it as well. So I've got my pen and my whiteboard, and I'm going to have the same 30 seconds as you, and we'll see how many words we can write down in 30 seconds. Remember, they've got to be nouns, so no descriptions, just the names of people, places, things, and emotions. Are you ready? Here we go. On your marks, get set, go. I'm going to write mine at the same time. Time's up. Heads down. Stop what you're doing. Oh, that went really quickly, didn't it? I can't believe it. Oh, my little crickets won't stop singing now. That's better. Right. So that was really quick. I didn't manage as many as I thought I was going to do. 30 seconds is not a very long time. Okay, I'm going to show you my board and show you what I managed to do. So let's have a look. Here's my board. I thought I might get 10, but I don't think I did. I got tree, so a tree, and you can see there's a big tree in the middle, and we're going to talk about that tree quite a lot. And then I've written the word undergrowth. So in a rainforest, there's lots of undergrowth. That means the main, my crickets keep going off, the main plants and animals that live underneath the tree, they're called in the undergrowth. So that's the plants that are underneath the tree. Then we've got vines. In a rainforest, you see lots of vines. You might see on the picture the bits hanging down. So there's lots and lots of vines in a rainforest. And then I've got some simple ones. I've got man, snake, macaw. That's the parrot that's up in the corner there. And leaves. So I started to think about tree and I thought, oh, let's look a bit closer at tree. And you might have leaves. Now, you might have had words like bark, or you might have had some more names of the tree, of different trees, or you might have had some names of the different animals. All of those words are nouns, okay? So have a count up, see how many you did. And what we're going to do is tomorrow, we're going to have another go at that game when we've learned a bit more about rainforest and see if we can manage to write more than we did today. So how many did I get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I got 7. Write the number at the end of your list so you can remember how many you got for tomorrow, and we'll have another go at that tomorrow. Right, well done. Got our brains working. We've got our brains working English now. We've got lots of words in our head. So let's see if we can have a go now and think about the actual book that we're going to have a look at. So let's move on. These are all the nouns from the first page of the book that we're going to look at. And the book we're going to look at is called The Great Kapok Tree. And it's written by an author called Lynn Cherry, and she's American. And this book is all about the Great Kapok Tree, and this kapok tree is very important in the rainforest. So if you have a look at the screen, all of those words are from the very first page, and it's just the nouns from the first page. So we've got Amazon, heat, canopy, sky, light, tree, branch, forest, animals, darkness, vines, environment, forest, community, tree, forest, trees, place, animals, parrots, monkeys, bottom, understory, understory, snakes, jaguars, kapok tree, canopy, animals, and forest. So we've got the word trees and the word forest lots of times, and I've written it the number of times it appeared on that page. So that is a description of a rainforest. And at the beginning of this story, even before we actually start the story itself, there's some information about the rainforest. I'm going to stop sharing my screen with you for a minute so you can see me a bit bigger. So this is the book that we're going to be looking at. And here you can see, right at the very beginning, there's a big map of where rainforests are. And these are tropical rainforests. There's 2 different kinds of forests, and we're looking at tropical rainforests. And you can see there's some tropical rainforests over here in Asia. There's some tropical rainforests in Africa. But this is the tropical rainforest that we're going to be looking at, and it's the Amazon rainforest, and it goes across a number of countries in South America, but especially in Brazil. And all the way around the outside of the page, there are lots of different animals that we're going to meet during this story. So you can see all sorts of animals here. Okay. And the page that I stole the nouns from is this very first page, and it happens even before the story has started. So you can see this is the cover page for the actual story, and this is just a piece of information at the beginning of the book which tells you all about the rainforest. And it says, in the Amazon rainforest, it is always hot, and in that heat everything grows and grows and grows. The tops of the trees in the rainforest are called the canopy. So the bit right at the top is called the canopy. The canopy is a sunny place that touches the sky. The animals that live there like lots of light. Colourful parrots fly from tree to tree. Monkeys leap from branch to branch. The bottom of the rainforest is called the understory. So the bit right underneath where the big main canopy of trees is called the understory. The animals that live in the understory like darkness. So the trees are so densely packed in that it's really quite dark at the bottom of the rainforest. There, silent snakes curl around hanging vines. Graceful jaguars watch and wait. And in this steamy environment, the great kapok tree shoots up through the forest and emerges above the canopy. So the kapok tree is one of the tallest trees in the rainforest. This is the story of a community of animals that live in one such tree in the rainforest. So this is the story of animals that live in one such tree in the rainforest. And you can see at the front, here's the kapok tree. And down here, there's a man looking up at that kapok tree. So using that information, what do you think this story might be about? What do you think might happen in this story? So when we're thinking about what might happen, we need to think about who might these things happen to, what's going to happen, and why is it going to happen? And we need to use clues. So the information we've got so far is that it's in a rainforest, and it's something to do with the kapok tree. And I think this man down here is quite significant. Have a really good look at this man down here. Now, what do you think this story might be about? I think this man here has got an axe, which worries me a bit, because I know from my previous experience of rainforests that lots of rainforests are quite badly destroyed by humans cutting down trees for all sorts of reasons. So I'm a bit worried that this man's going to be cutting down this tree. And I think if he does, the animals and the community that survive around the kapok tree are going to be threatened. So I think there's going to be some problems in this story. So shall we have a start with the story? So here's the first page, you can see here. Two men walked into the rainforest. Moments before, the forest had been alive with the sounds of squawking birds and howling monkeys. Now, all was quiet as the creatures watched the two men and wondered why they had come. The larger man stopped and pointed to a great kapok tree. Then he left. That's what happened on the first page. You can see down the bottom here, see that person down here? And there's another person over here. So this is the man that left, and this is the man that stayed. So perhaps he's in charge of this man here, and he went off. So while we're reading this, we're going to be thinking about who, what, and why. Okay, who is the page about? What happens on that page, and why does it happen? Okay, and we're going to come back once we've got part of the way through the story and have a think about each page one at a time. So we've got this man, and the other man's gone off, and this man's left in the forest. Here he is in the forest. The smaller man took the axe he carried and struck the trunk of the tree. Whack, whack, whack. The sounds of the blows rang through the forest. The wood of the tree was very hard. Chop, chop, chop. The man wiped off the sweat that ran down his face and neck. Whack, chop, whack, chop. Soon the man grew tired. He sat down to rest at the foot of the great kapok tree. Before he knew it, the heat and hum of the forest had lulled him to sleep. So he's exhausted from the heat and he's fallen asleep, and here he is. Oh dear, This does not look like the kind of place you want to fall asleep. A boa constrictor lived in the kapok tree. He slithered down its trunk to where the man was sleeping. He looked at the gash the axe had made in the tree. Then the huge snake slid very close to the man and hissed in his ear. "Senor, this tree is a tree of miracles. It is my home where generations of my ancestors have lived. Do not chop it down." See here, he's hissing into the man's ear, and the man's still fast asleep. He's got no idea what's happened so far. And then some insects come along. Can you see those? And in particular, a bee. Here's the bee buzzing up close to his ear. A bee buzzed in the sleeping man's ear. "Senor, my hive is in this kapok tree, and I fly from tree to tree, from flower to flower, collecting pollen. In this way, I pollinate the trees and flowers throughout the rainforest. You see, all living things depend on one another." So all of these different living things depend on the kapok tree, and they're not happy that he's going to cut down this tree. And then we move on. Look at the next sort of animals. I think these might be squirrel monkeys. Squirrel monkeys are really common in the rainforest. A troop of monkeys scampered down from the canopy of the kapok tree. They chattered to the sleeping man. "Senor, we have seen the ways of man. You chop down one tree, then you come back for another and another. The roots of these great trees will wither and die, and there will be nothing left to hold the earth in place. When the heavy rains come, the soils will be washed away, and the forest will become a desert." So they're really worried about what's going to happen to their habitat, the area where they live. And then some other animals come along. These are birds this time. Can you see the birds? A toucan, there's a toucan up here, a macaw, and a cock of the rock. That's an unusual name for an animal, isn't it? Cock of the rock flew down from the canopy. "Senor," squeaked the toucan, "you must not cut down this tree. We have flown over the rainforest and see what happens once you begin to chop down the trees. Many people settle on the land. They set fire to clear the underbrush, and soon the forest disappears. Where once there was life and beauty, only black and smouldering ruins remain." So they're really not happy either. And as the story goes on, each animal comes along and explains to the man why he can't chop down the tree. So we were talking about summarising today, weren't we? And when we're summarising, I asked you to think about 3 different things on each page. So I asked you to think about who, what, and why. So if we go back to the first page of the book, of the story that I read, not the bit right at the very beginning where we read about the rainforest, but the actual start of the story, we had the 2 men, if you remember, at the beginning. So if I share my screen with you again, I'll show you what I put down for the summary of that part of the story. So let's move on from here. So who? So for who, I've written 2 men. So we've got 2 men on this page, and they're the really significant part of this page. What? What did they do? Well, they entered the forest and they pointed to a tree. Don't know what's going to happen yet, but that's what they did. And why? Well, I thought perhaps they were going to chop it down because this man, here was my clue, this man had an axe. So I thought they were going to chop down the tree. So sometimes we'll know why they're going to do something, and other times we won't be entirely certain. Okay, so what I want you to do now is I want you to write, just like I have, who, what, and why down the side of your page. Okay, and we're going to have a go. I'm going to read you 1 page, and I want you to see if you can summarise it just like I've done. So it doesn't have to be in full sentences, just a summary of what happened on that page. So I'm going to read the 2nd page to you now. Okay, I'm going to read it again, and I want you to think about who, what, and why. The smaller man took the axe he carried and struck the trunk of the tree. Whack, whack, whack. The sound of the blows rang through the forest. The wood of the tree was very hard. Chop, chop, chop. The man wiped off the sweat that ran down his face and neck. Whack, chop, whack, chop. Soon the man grew tired. He sat down to rest at the foot of the great kapok tree. Before he knew it, the heat and hum of the forest had lulled him to sleep. So remember, I want a really short version of just that page. So who was on that page? What happened on that page? And why did it happen? Okay, so I'd like you to press pause now and complete that summary just for that page. Off you go. Okay, how did you get on? So we wanted to know who, what, and why. So who? Well, the main person on this page was the smaller man. If you've just written man, that's absolutely fine. What happened on this page? And I've written chopped at the tree and fell asleep. Okay, so they're the things that had happened. So they started to chop down the tree, hadn't finished chopping down the tree, but he fell asleep. And why did he fall asleep? Well, I think he probably fell asleep because he was exhausted because it was so hot. Okay, so if you've got all three of those things, well done. If not, we're going to have another go at the next page, so you can give that a go. If you want to, you can get a different colour pen and add in anything from here that you forgot. Okay, but we're going to go back now. You're going to write who, what, and why again underneath that, and we're going to have a go at page 3. Okay, so press pause, make sure you've got who, what, and why, and then we're going to have a go at page 3. So page 3 was the page with the snake. A boa constrictor lived in the kapok tree. He slithered down its trunk to where the man was sleeping. He looked at the gash the axe had made in the tree. Then the huge snake slid very close to the man and hissed in his ear. Senor, this tree is a tree of miracles. It is my home where generations of my ancestors have lived. Do not chop it down. So can you write the summary for that page now? Press pause and have a go at writing a summary of that page. Okay, how did you get on? Let's have a think about this page then. So who? So this page, the main person in this page was the boa constrictor. So sometimes the who is not a person, it's an animal or a character in a story. And then what? What did he do? Well, he spoke to the man whilst the man was sleeping, didn't he? So we spoke to the man. Why did he speak to the man? Well, he explained lots of reasons, but the main reason he spoke to the man was to stop him from chopping down the tree. So we just want a summary. Remember, we don't want every single detail. So just to stop him chopping down the tree, because that was the key message. And then he explained, didn't he, a bit more about why he didn't want the tree chopped down. But just chopping down the tree is enough. Okay, right, we're going to have one more go at that. So can you have another go? Can you write who, what, and why again in your book? And we're going to have one last go and see how we get on with that for today. You're doing really well so far. Right, here we go. So the next page, let's have a look at the next page in the book. The next page was the insects and the butterflies and the bees that came along. A bee buzzed in the sleeping man's ear. Senor, my hive is in this kapok tree, and I fly from tree to tree and flower to flower collecting pollen. In this way, I pollinate the trees and flowers throughout the rainforest. You see, all living things depend on one another. Okay, press pause and see if you can have a go at writing the summary of that page. Who, what, and why. Okay, how did you get on? Let's have a look. So who? It was the bee this time, wasn't it? What? Did the same thing again. He spoke to the man. Why? You could have again said because he didn't want him to chop down the tree, but it doesn't actually say that specifically on this page. It's what he's explaining is how living things depend on each other. And he talks about how the insects pollinate the trees and flowers and that they rely on each other to help them survive. So you might have put that, but it was fine if you also put that he was trying to convince him not to chop down the tree. Well done. So that was summarising. We're going to have a little go at summarising again tomorrow. Let's have a look. So that was a bit of a shorter session today because we didn't have so much time for you working on your own. There was lots of work with me today, but as the week gets to go on and you get more and more confident with the text, there'll be a little bit longer for you to go off and do some work independently. Let's just, before we finish, have a little look at what we're going to be doing tomorrow in a bit more detail. Let me share my screen with you and I'll show you. So here was our summarising that we did today. This is what we're going to be doing tomorrow. So we're going to be finishing the Great Kapok Tree. I'm going to finish the story because it's quite a short one. And we're going to have another go at doing some summarising. So we're going to summarise a few more pages and then we're going to have a go at summarising the whole text. So in as shorter words as possible. And that's much trickier because we're going to have to put all of the ideas together from the book and think about that. We started looking at nouns today and tomorrow we're going to have another game with nouns at the start and then we're going to move on and try and make something called expanded noun phrases. And we're going to be trying to identify expanded noun phrases in some of the text that we've read. So I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Hope you have a good rest of the day, and I'll be back tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.